Okay, there he is, the man, my buddy from NFL Network, NFL Media Group, my Pro Football Hall of Fame friend, Kurt Warner, here on this first ever Zoom edition of the Rich Eisen Show. I just switched views. I'm already getting into it where I can actually push buttons like a director. How are you, Kurt?
I'm doing all right. Family's good. We're all healthy and just hunkering down and trying to get through this like everybody else. But it's good to have everybody together and, some quality time, probably more than I've had in a long time. So
I
from
bet.
that standpoint, I'm just trying to enjoy it.
So are you, did you just get a workout? Am I seeing like fresh off a workout right here, Kurt?
Yeah, well, I got one earlier this morning, and then Cade, my middle son, is back from Nebraska, so we just did a little basketball workout before I jumped on. So yeah, just trying to stay active, as you know, just staying busy.
Well, I just started the show by talking about how I think that Brady is going to make this team an 11-12 win team in Tampa. And I'm wondering if you think that's an immediate overreaction. What do you think, Kurt?
No, I don't think it's an immediate overreaction. I mean, I think this was a team that had a chance to win 10 games or so last year, outside of some turnovers by Jameis, as I heard you were talking about. But at the same time, I think you're talking about a team that's in a tough division, first and foremost, and they've got a tough schedule. So although I know Tom Brady and we're enamored by that whole thing and how great Tom has been, it's not an easy road just because you got Tom Brady, even though they've got some good pieces. I mean, I just got the schedule up in front of me. I mean, at home, you got Green Bay, Kansas City, Minnesota, the Saints, obviously the Falcons, Carolina, the Rams, and the Chargers. I don't know who their quarterbacks are, but that's their home schedule. I mean, that's 8 games against teams that were either in the playoffs or vying for the playoffs for the most part last year. So, yeah, I mean, he's obviously – I say an upgrade from the standpoint that I thought Jameis did a lot of really good things last year, but he just got in his way too much. And that's the one thing with Tom Brady, he's not going to turn the ball over. So if you can even get, 3/4 of the production that Jameis had and you cut those interceptions in about a fourth, what does that mean for this team? You're probably right. They're a 10, 11, 12 win team if everything comes together, and you have to believe they're going to be a little bit better because they were young, especially defensively last year. They're going to be even a little better on that side of the ball than they were.
Well, I'm not, a walk-in Pro Football Focus here, and I don't know, how the percentages change, blah, blah, blah. But you'd have to think with the 30 interceptions, we know a handful of them were pick sixes, but the field flipping that would happen, that would put the defense on their heels. And that defense that Todd Bowles had last year was number one against the rush. I mean, they could just shut people down on the run and make it more of a one-dimensional game. And if Brady can, again, as you say, cut them by 3/4 down to just 1/4 of the number of interceptions, just that alone would cascade and ripple effect on this team that was 7-7 with all of those turnovers from just the quarterback.
I think back to the game that you guys called down in Tampa late in the year against the Texans, who was a playoff team. And, the Texans squeaked that one out. But if it wasn't for a couple early interceptions, the pick six right off the bat by Jameis, and that's what we saw. You mentioned, I think, the last throw that he made in a Tampa uniform. I believe it was against Atlanta where he threw that pick six in overtime. And again, another game that's right there, with the ability to be had. So I'm with you. But, the thing that we know in this business is that you can't just take last year and then fit it into this year and add pieces. There's so much that has to do with chemistry and timing and figuring out how that works. And as we said, the schedule and other teams, are they going to be better? Atlanta, I mean, you look at Atlanta, you were talking about Todd Gurley. You look at Atlanta's starting offense. Right. They got like 10 guys that were, first-round draft picks. Now, they haven't played that well lately, but I just look at that team and I go, man, this team could explode at any point in time as well. Carolina, what does Teddy Bridgewater bring to the table? We know the Saints are going to be really good. So, again, I think he improves them. But how much and how's the schedule look and how do these other teams shake out? But it gives us something to talk about for sure. And it makes the NFC, I think, really wide open and really tough because there are so many teams and so many quarterbacks over there. It's going to be really fun.
What do you make of the news? Again, Rick Stroud in Tampa has been covering the team, reporting, and then in Peter King's Football Morning in America piece that came out just today, that Bruce Arians and Jason Light hadn't even spoken to Brady till Wednesday. What did you make? So Brady was beginning to lean in Tampa's direction before he even spoke to Arians. What do you make of that
You
one?
know, I think it's a little bit fascinating, but I wonder if you also, when you're going through this process, you feel like Tom Brady had an idea on why he wanted to go different places and why he would consider different places. And I sit back and I wonder, yeah, I'm sure a part of it was football related, but I'm not sure that was the biggest part. I think he wanted to change the scenery. I think he wanted something that was, close to his family. Everybody's reporting that, his son is in that New York area. He wanted to stay on the East Coast. So maybe this was one of those situations where he really had a sense very early on when the market shrunk to just a couple teams. Well, I mean, Tampa's my best shot. So I know of Coach Arians. I know Coach Arians. Do I need to really talk to him and have him sell me on the situation? Or is it more big picture and going, what's the best fit for me, regardless of the other stuff? Let me just find the best fit. It's Tampa, and let's go.
Well, I was even, supposing, because that's what we do when we're bored and sitting in shelter in place, that maybe Brady even reached out to Peyton. He and Peyton have seemingly maintained much closer touch than perhaps anybody would let on because of the so-called rivalry for all those years. But, everybody down in Tampa, Peyton's very familiar with, and I'm sure Brady's very familiar with Peyton's mode of offense and whether he could fit in it, right? I mean, and then again, you point out about what happened last year in the game that I called on that Week 16 Saturday in advance of your Bills-Patriots game that you called. And that game where Winston threw a pick six that got called back only to allow the Texans to score, and then a pick six for real the next time. That game, they were in that at the very end. There was no Godwin. There was no Evans in that game. They were literally down to people whose name tags would not needed to be used for Jameis.
Yeah.
They were in the huddle. That's for real. So I'm just wondering if that might have played a role in it,
Well, I mean, again, I think you can look at the pieces and be excited from that standpoint. I don't think that's a part of it. I think you can look at Bruce Arians' resume, no matter where it's been, whether it's been a coordinator with the Steelers, whether it's been a head coach in Arizona, what he did with Jameis last year. And again, 30-30, but you're looking at Jameis Winston that threw for 5,000 yards and 30 touchdowns. I mean, I think all the pieces are right out there in front of you. Do I really necessarily need to have a conversation to go, oh, well, yeah, this guy's a good coach, or this guy can help me, or they've got the pieces, that I really wonder if this was more Tom Brady hunkering down with his family. Here's the market. Here's the teams. I believe I can win anywhere. I think I can be successful anywhere. What's the best fit for us? And, maybe that's part of why he didn't really have to do the extensive traveling and, and talk to a bunch of people, because it was bigger than that. It was bigger than, than just what team gives me the best chance to win. Where's the right fit for me and my family? Because you have to believe that's why this move was made as much as anything. It was just time to move the family, go somewhere else, try something new. And it just seems like Tampa was the best fit.
So, well, in the few minutes we have left here, let's hit some other quarterback situations here. Man, I just can't believe that Cam might have to look at accepting a backup role somewhere to prove that his foot's fine or to prove something. And obviously you know what it's like to be a Super Bowl winning, as opposed to he went to one Super Bowl quarterback just purely identified with one organization and then have to find a new way. I wonder what you think is going on in Cam's mind right now, Kurt.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's fascinating. As you said, I was in a very similar situation. Won 2 MVPs, went to 2 Super Bowls. And then the perception was out there when the Rams released me that I was damaged goods, right? That I couldn't play. I couldn't be the same quarterback I was before. And that's a tough place to be, because as you know, in this business, perception is reality. What is out there and what people think, the shoulder, the foot, he can't be the same guy. People believe that. And so it becomes a show me, what have you done for me lately type league. And that's why I had to take that stint with the Giants, was just to try to prove to people, because it was really the only shot I could find of being a starting quarterback, knowing that they were drafting Eli, being a starting quarterback in hopes to prove in that one season, hey, I can still play this game and parlay that into another starting job. And so, you look at Cam, and I have to believe everybody's looking at it that way. And I think it's twofold with Cam as well, too, because not only the injuries and is he going to be healthy, but he was such a different type of quarterback, the running quarterback, the power quarterback, the ability to run in those short yardage situations, not necessarily a true drop back quarterback. And so I think the other facet of this is teams looking and going, okay, if we do get Cam, and even if he's healthy, can he be that Cam Newton again? Or now is he more relegated to being a drop back passer? And if so, what kind of drop back pass, what kind of player will he be if he's more fit into that role? And so I think there's just a whole bunch of questions with that. But that being said, our league is in a good place quarterback wise, but this is Cam Newton too. And he is a special beast. And yeah, he might have to go to a place where it looks like they've got a guy as a starter, or he's going to have to compete for it. But that's what we do as competitors, right? That's what we do is, yeah, it's nice to have the job given to you. But there's something about going in and saying, hey, just give me a chance and I will prove to you who I am and what I can be. And it sure looks like that's probably going to be Cam's situation outside of maybe, does New England take a shot to go that route, even though they've got a young guy and kind of the same thing. Jarrett's not ready yet. Let's bring in a Cam Newton and see what we get for a year. If we can get 2 or 3 years out of this guy, the special player he was, then we have that backup plan. I don't know. I'm fascinated, because Jameis too. Jameis is open now. Guy just threw for 5,000 yards and 30 touchdowns. I mean, he did a lot of good things last year. Look at, the Chargers. I mean, great situation with a lot of weapons. Is Tyrod the right guy to be able to utilize all those weapons, although he probably won't make the mistakes? But I'm fascinated by a couple of these situations and how it's going to play out. Andy Dalton is another guy that I'm a huge fan of. May not have the upside of some of these quarterbacks, but he does a lot of things really, really well. And in the right fit with a good team around him, he's definitely a playoff quarterback. He's shown us that too. So what route do they go with Andy Dalton? And there's only a handful of teams, a few teams out there that really need a quarterback, even from a competitive standpoint, that again, I'm fascinated. We've had a lot of moves in free agency, but I'm really fascinated what happens with these quarterbacks.
Well, I'm wondering with the signing of Hoyer in New England, I'm wondering if Belichick is sitting back and letting the market come to him. By that, I mean, let the draft happen. Let's see what happens in the draft, because I'm assuming the Chargers' move here is let's keep Tyrod Taylor here. He's a veteran who's been in the playoffs before. He did that with the Bills, although they were points challenged in that game against Jacksonville, to say the least. But maybe just sitting back and letting the market come to him by saying, let's see who takes the quarterback. The Chargers will take their quarterback. The Dolphins will take their quarterback. I think they're definitely going to take Tua, which means Josh Rosen might pop free. The Bengals will obviously take their quarterback. Won't be able to, one would think, keep Burrow and Dalton, although Dalton would be a great guy to have on your team, to have Burrow mentor by him, although I don't know how much he wants to play the role of Mr. Chips. I'm just wondering what Belichick is doing right there, because I think I know what the Chargers like. Hey, let's go, shoot our shot with Brady. That's the only way that would take us out of our plan of let's stick with Taylor, go draft somebody. But I'm wondering if that's what Belichick's plan is by hiring Hoyer right now to get in that meeting room with Stidham.
I would not be surprised in the least bit if they believe Stidham is the next guy. I think that's really the question. And, you hear the good signs and what they saw. They truly believe he's the next guy, then I wouldn't be surprised at all, because you have to believe you can get one of these veteran guys. And if you can get 1 or 2 years out of them to play and be that stopgap, believing you've got your future, and if it happens sooner, it happens sooner, that would be the perfect mix. And as you said, these other teams that need one, Tyrod Taylor and the Chargers, that's probably not your long-term fix, right?
Right.
So what do they do? I can't imagine them go and sign Cam for a long-term deal. Jameis, I think is an interesting, because he's a young guy still, and he's done some really good things. Where does he end up? I think that's a key piece in this whole thing. But yeah, I wouldn't be surprised. Chargers sitting in the right spot, going, hey man, maybe we can get up there and get Tua and have our guy for the future, and how that plays out. and because the fact that, like you said, there's 3 veterans. If we talk about those guys, Jameis, Cam, and Andy Dalton. If you're Bill Belichick, you're going, I can win with those guys. I mean, I had one of the best defenses in the league last year.
Right.
You give me one of those guys, we will be successful, and we still have our plan moving forward. So, yeah, I would not be surprised by that in the least bit if he just kind of waited this out and see if even if these quarterbacks will sign before the draft. I mean, do you think that those quarterbacks will go off the board before the draft, or it will be, let's wait and see who we get if we're those other teams, and then we'll go get the veteran?
Well, maybe they won't, because as in the world we're living in right now, there's not going to be any off-season workouts. There's not going to be any places opening for business in April and handing off the playbook to people then because of COVID-19. And I've said now, anybody that signs, like Philip, in my mind, Philip Rivers should have the playbook in his hand right now, because the only reason why you're holding a playbook off from players in March is usually, what the reason for this is to take the pressure off of the players. And from being made to feel like they're less than a good teammate because they're not studying all the time, or that they're being pressured by management to come in. There needs to be just this regular cooling off period, but now we're all being cooled off. I think they should give them the playbook right then and there, but I don't want to go down that wormhole. But so I don't think these guys will sign right now. Maybe they should sit back and wait. And in terms of Jameis, and then I just want to move on to one more quarterback situation with you. Peter King came on the show a couple weeks ago and threw the Steelers out there, that maybe Jameis signs with the Steelers. He's their quarterback of the future. If Ben isn't ready this year, and he looks like he's part of the Duck Dynasty cast, as we saw over the last couple of days, and that if he's not ready to go, maybe Jameis is the guy, since we saw them play musical chairs with Mason Rudolph and Duck Hodges wasn't working out, that maybe that might not be a bad spot for him to land in Pittsburgh.
Not at all. Not at all. I mean, because these teams have to start thinking of that next plan. I mean, Ben, I think, has 2 more years on his contract. And with the injury, I mean, he just probably not going to play beyond that, but who knows? So, yeah, I mean, I think Jameis is fascinating, because Jameis has done so many good things in this league. And everybody just looks at him and goes, well, if we can just eliminate the interceptions. Now, we've seen plenty of guys that we've said that throughout their entire career, and they never get to that point. But that's why he's so intriguing, because he does so many good things. I mean, I watch all the film every week, and he makes more throws and more big-time decisions than most quarterbacks in this league. And it excites me every time I watch him or I talk to him about it. But it just, again, you got to at some point be able to delineate between what's a good attempt and what's a bad attempt. And he just hasn't figured that out yet. And, a team like the Steelers or somebody else, I think, has to be intrigued by that, especially if they don't have to pay him big dollars, right, and go, man, maybe we can be that guy. Maybe we can be that team. Maybe he can mature. Maybe he can work through it. But if we're not tied in for the long term, I think it's very intriguing for, one of these teams that knows their guy is probably moving closer to retirement. I mean, the Saints. And I know Taysom Hill might be their guy for the future, but, Drew's got a couple more years. And then, could he learn from Jameis? Could he, become that next guy? Again, to me, one of the most fascinating, parts of this kind of free agency with the quarterback position.
Last one for you. Put you in another position that you've been in your life. Super Bowl MVP, on going to yet another team, and needing to either mentor or push or displace a highly drafted quarterback. Yours was Matt Leinart. Now I'm talking about Nick Foles showing up in Chicago. I mean, it's amazing. 1 year after he was a huge free agent signing in Jacksonville, hitting the jackpot for him, well-deserved.
Yeah.
Now he's traded for a 4th-round compensatory pick on the next new league year to Chicago. What in the world do you think Nick Foles' role is in Chicago right now?
Well, fascinating, because they've got a great situation, I think, for Nick Foles. Nick Foles, to me, I'm not sure he's the guy that, made the $30 million. I'm not sure he's the guy that you go, here, go throw the ball 35, 40 times for us and win games for us with your right arm. That's never really been him. He's been a good leader. He's been able to manage games extremely well. For whatever reason, he's a leader. He's able to get the best out of the team around him. So it fascinates me with the Chicago team. It's got a great defense, is going to be in most games, and they need a guy to come in and lead, make the plays they're supposed to make, not have to do anything special. Yet they've got this young quarterback that they, went up and got and put a lot into, that's really struggled. I think this is really going to be one of those situations where I think you find out a lot about players when you bring a guy in to look over their shoulder that everybody knows can play, everybody knows is a leader, to see how you respond to that. What is Mitch Trubisky going to do? I believe he goes in as the starter, but I think Nick is going to push him in every way, shape, or form, and just more than anything, be a presence right there to say, hey, you mess up, I got this. I got this and I can run with this. And so I think we're really going to see who Mitch Trubisky is. This is one of those things that can either catapult guys forward and allow them to become a competitor and learn how to play at this level, or guys shrink and they worry about every mistake and they worry about every throw and it starts to eat them up. And I really think that's what Chicago said, is that we're going to bring in a guy that we know we can win with and we know that can lead our organization. We still want Mitch to be that guy, but we are going to put the pressure on him to see which way he goes.
Well, I mean, that's the one thing, and I'll just ask, and we'll end it with this, is what does it mean push? Because if he was the second overall selection that they wanted him to be, he wouldn't need to be pushed. They wouldn't have to bring in somebody to push him, right? I mean, isn't this some sort of admission that it's not working out? What does that mean by push?
No, right. I mean, no, I don't think there's any question. It's an indication that it's not working the way they want it to work. But as I said, there's times when you're in a situation where you kind of know you're the guy. And regardless of what happens, you look behind you and you go, they're not giving the reins to that guy. That's not the guy that's going to lead them into the future. Not that the player behind me isn't good, but that's not what's going to happen. And so you can get that, sense of security where it's kind of like, I got this, no matter if I screw up or whatever. Pushing to me is going, okay, we just brought somebody in to let you know that is not the case anymore. We just brought in a Super Bowl MVP, a Super Bowl champion that came in as a backup and led his team to the Super Bowl. This is it. This is your chance to prove it. And I don't believe he's got a very long leash now. Whereas I believe the past couple years, because of how it played out, and more importantly, who the guy was behind him, that he knew and everybody knew, we just got to go down this path and we got to see we're going to take what we get, but we have nowhere else to go. Now Chicago's saying we got somewhere else to go, and we want it to be him, and they don't want to be wrong, but at the same time, they've got a backup plan. And that to me is pushing that. Again, every throw that Mitch makes in training camp is going to be weighed against everything that Nick Foles does. And Mitch knows that. And that's to me, it's the fascinating part when you get in there is, what do you do in those situations? When you screw up, can you let that go and not worry about what's behind you and make the next throw? Or does one bad throw turn to a next, and it starts to show who you're probably going to be under those pressure situations?
All right. Thanks for doing this, Kurt. You're our first Zoom guest in the history of the Rich Eisen Show. And you're going to be the first of, I assume, many that are going to be Zooming in from their home office. So I'm going to make this a little bit of an end part of those segments. Behind you, walk me through that. That looks like an ESPY next to Walter Payton Man of the Year award, right? I mean, am I correct? Is that what it is up there?
I don't know what you see up there. So
if you go to your left.
Looking here?
Up all the way to the left up there, that looks like is that your Walter Payton Man of the Year award right there? Is that what that is?
Right there. No, that's an Athletes in Action. That is an ESPY.
All right.
That's obviously the MVP trophy. Yeah. Super Bowl MVP. This is the MVP quarterback club. I don't know. Sorry, I had to go up and read them. I wasn't really sure what was up there. Okay. They've been up there for a while, but yeah,
that's the ultimate.
Hey, thanks for mentioning that. Make me feel relevant again. It's like Mooch. As long as you don't come and try to take him out of my office, make me feel relevant.
Yeah. Okay. And that helmet. That's I see. There's one up there, right? What is that helmet? That's right there.
The silver one has there's a cardinal emblem on it, so it's just cool.
Yeah.
The other one over there is just a Super Bowl helmet. It's signed by a couple people. I'm not sure who signed it. So, Yeah, I guess it's my little shrine here in my
I
office.
got books. I got books.
You just got books?
Yeah.
I mean,
Like, here's another pair of glasses. You know,
well, come on, we got to pump that up a little bit. Come on,
I got
these this Zoom TV show
yes,
that you're doing is gonna win an award, and then we're gonna get you an Emmy for
right there.
hosting our show here this year,
Okay.
and all the coverage that you did, throughout the off season. It's time. We got to load that thing up with some awards. If
All
not, you can have a couple of mine. We'll put them behind you, and we'll make it look really, really good.
All right. Best to Brenda and your family, man. Stay safe and healthy. Thanks for doing this, Kurt.
Same to you. Best to the kids and the fam. Tell Suze we said hello. Hello.
You got it, buddy. Take it easy. That's
All right, buddy.
right here on this edition of the Rich Eisen Show.